everyone. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince, and I am super excited to actually bring you another episode of the H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's based on my book with the same title, but the subtitle is It's a Guide for Healing Your Inner Child. And I am so excited to be able to actually have these podcasts because I know that they make a difference in people understanding that they have things in their life that may have been seeded in their childhood that they haven't really addressed or talked about. But listen, this episode is brought to you by none other than our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Again, we want to thank BetterHelp for being a sponsor of this episode, and we are so excited to be able to, as I oftentimes say, not end the conversation, but start the conversation around inner child trauma, inner child wounds, but also inner child healing. And my guest today is none other than Miss Marlo Young, and I'm going to bring her up and she's going to introduce herself. Welcome, Miss Young.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, and you? Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Marlo Young. I am a certified mental health coach and advocate, and also a National Council of the Wellbeing First Aid mental health instructor.
Wow, very impressive. And I've started to do this with all of my guests, and I really do want to applaud you and thank you for your service, because it's hard enough for us to go through this stuff on our own and deal with our own trauma and our own wounds. But when you take up the mantle of helping somebody else walk through the muck and mire of their own past and their own issues, to me, that's heroic. And I want to thank you for your service.
Yes, you're very welcome. Mental health is my passion, and it's something that I have worked towards for over a decade. I got my master's degree from University of West Alabama in psychology and counseling, and so it's something I've been passionate about, and I have lent that background to my community, and extending those resources that I've obtained and knowledge that I've obtained to others as well.
Right. Well, we are again so grateful and thankful for all that you do to help people get to a better space and a better place in life. So with that being said, let's jump into some of these questions, because I've noticed I've had the same list of questions, but everybody's answer is oftentimes different. Some of them are almost the same, but they have their own take and twist on them. So I can't wait to hear yours. So the first question we have is, in your professional opinion, how important is it for inner child healing?
I think it is very crucial. Inner child healing, especially as it relates to trauma, if it's not something that's dealt with or addressed or confronted, it has a way of coming back up again, especially in adulthood. So
yes.
It's very vital. It's very vital to address inner child healing.
Yes, I actually I talk about that in the book too. In fact, I believe it's chapter 5 where I entitled it "The Slap Heard Round the World." Okay. And I talked about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars, and that's a recent example, a very public example of someone who had childhood issues that showed up in the worst possible time and cost them millions of dollars. And so, I know it's important for us to actually focus on understanding ourselves, because I tell people all the time, it's not just what you do, but why you do it. And And if you never understand why, you will find yourself being a slave to your own impulses and your own emotions. And I share with people all the time that we don't have first reactors, we have first responders. Those people that respond. And so there's a difference between reacting and responding. So
a very big difference. I wanted to add also, Sakoni, just a personal experience. Not only do I work, in the mental health capacity, but I also work in the adult education field. So in times past, I've worked, in the K-12. And so I've seen firsthand and counseled, school-age children that may have experienced some type of trauma, in their life. But fast forward, where they wasn't able to cope in school, they left the school system before graduating. And then now I'm working in adult education. Now I see that same student that might have been one of my students in K-12 now trying to work towards their GED because for some reason they wasn't able to complete K-12. So, and a lot of times those underlying situations are trauma. It's some type of childhood situation that they may not have been able to reconcile, then. And so now they're having that same challenge as an adult. And sometimes we don't always recognize that it's trauma or they're dealing with some type of childhood situation, the reason why they can't focus in class or reach their goals. So it's very important that, individuals recognize childhood trauma and recognize how to start that process of healing from that trauma. And also it's important for others to be able to have that knowledge and be able to recognize when someone is having some type of challenge or some type of trauma so that we don't re-traumatize that individual.
That is so true. And that really brings me back to the second question, which is, in your professional opinion, when should someone start inner child work?
As soon as they recognize some type of repeated pattern in their lives, whether if it is they're not able to, hold a full-time job consistently because it's some type of underlying trauma that hasn't been dealt with, but definitely it's something that they should act on, immediately as soon as they can recognize that there's some type of challenge there.
Right. My personal development journey started when I was in college, and I was actually dating this young lady. Everything was going good, great, and fine until it wasn't. And when the relationship ended, instead of me, I had a ton of questions, but not of her, of myself. I started asking myself, why is it that, in 80 to 90% of the relationships I've been in, it was a woman that ended it. I started to question why I hung in there for dear life. And I started a journey, which I'm still on today, to understanding who I am. Little did I know that doing college would just keep me on this road, which has allowed me an opportunity to free myself from a lot of those things, but also it's put me in a position to be able to, one, write a book, which I never thought I would be doing that in reference to this, but then also doing this podcast, because again, I just want to raise awareness, because like you said, until people recognize and see it for what it is, they aren't going to start that, and I think it's important for us to be open to the possibility that our behavior could be a result of something, even from an unconscious level, that we are acting out, living out. And if we're not in a position to where we can be that objective about ourselves, I think we need to get there, because that's what I did. I started questioning me. I wasn't worried about her. She was gone. I'm like, Sakona, why are you like this? So.
Okay. Yes, it starts with us, and that's that self-reflection.
That
and
part.
Most definitely being self-aware, of ourselves and challenges, and then also triggers. So that's very vital. It starts with us. We all have
Yes.
to do our own self-work. And I know that's another one of our questions that have come down the pipeline, but not only self-work, but connecting with someone that can help you with whatever type of challenge that you may have in your life. Connecting with a professional, a life coach,
Yeah.
a therapist, a psychologist, to help
Yes.
you work through some of that inner child trauma.
Yeah. Now, in fact, for those that are listening, I know you mentioned life coach, you mentioned therapist, and psychologist, and I think that you mentioned them in that order because it was strategic. Because for some individuals, all they need is a coach. All they need is someone to help come alongside and actually just give them that structure, that accountability effect that they need in order to get to where they
Yeah.
want to go. For other people, they have deeper issues and they need a therapist where they really need to, in fact, to dig deep about their behavior and what is really affecting them today. But then there's that next level where you really need to get down to a psychological level when it comes to your behavior and what's affecting you. And so I'm so glad, the fact that you mentioned those three, because someone may not need a psychologist. In fact, they just may need a coach, or someone may not need a therapist. In fact, they just may need a coach, or someone may need more than a coach. They may need a therapist. And so, knowing the difference, I think really helps people to, yeah, help people to understand that there is help available. I don't care what level you're on.
Exactly.
So, question number three is, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of, just back up a little bit because that's very important that we set that foundation.
Yes.
And like you stated about the different professions, but also getting that understanding of terminology. And I'm big on mental health professional for over a decade, and also defining mental health because there's always this stigma that surrounds the term of mental health. And so when you think about mental health, it's something that we all have. We all encompass mental health. And it's a general sense of emotional, psychological, and cognitive well-being, and it helps us, to lead that productive life. But then we think about mental illness. That's that clinical term. That describes that a specific condition that is diagnosed by that profession. So that's why we want to make sure that we raise that self-awareness on mental health and mental illness, and knowing all of that helps in that inner child healing. It helps you get on that right path so that you can't live a mentally healthy life.
Yeah, and that is so true. And we talked about this a little bit, before we got started. And there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Just as there is a difference between physical health and physical illness. We all want to stay physically healthy, and we should all want to stay mentally healthy, which means there are checkups that are needed. There are things that we can do, just like with our physical body. Diet and exercise can help us stay physically healthy. Well, there are things we can do mentally that can help keep us in that space to where we can, as you said, lead a productive and wholesome life. And that is so true. And I'm glad that you defined those terms, because so many people, they want to just lump everything all in there, and it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah. So our next question is, how does trauma show up in life and relationships?
Wow.
Do we have enough time?
Yes. That's a whole nother podcast. It can manifest in many ways, and like you stated earlier about those repeated patterns of fear, of avoidance, difficulty trusting others. It can show up in many different ways, and that's why it's important to educate ourselves on that, and to get a better understanding about trauma.
Right. We oftentimes don't want to associate patterns, but it's sometimes, and I remember hearing Les Brown say this, that you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Wow.
And sometimes it takes somebody close to us, close enough to us, but outside the frame for them to bring something to our awareness. You know, it's the same thing if your slip is showing, or if your pants are unzipped, or or a myriad of other things. Your collar is turned up, or someone who can see something that you can't see. And this is why it's important for us to have people in our lives, because most of us, we aren't going to just run to a therapist or run to a psychologist, but if we have people that are close enough to us that we built relationships with, that can actually speak to those things, they can kind of help us identify. Because again, people say, well, that's just where I am. Well, no, it's not what you do, but why you do it. And if you never question your own self, maybe if there's somebody that's close enough to you that has that type of relationship, and say, hey, I've noticed this, or have you noticed when this happens, you act this way. They can help you identify triggers.
That's so important. Having a good friend, or someone, like you stated, that can be that mirror for you, and can show you some areas that they can assist you with, or just make you aware of it. Because sometimes we just don't know what we don't know, and we don't see some of the things that others see in us.
That is so true. I remember hearing this one guy say that you need to make a friend before you need a friend, because by the time you need one, it's the wrong time to try to make one.
Exactly. But you want someone that knows you.
Exactly.
that knows you and knows when something is not quite right. So definitely, I like that saying.
Yeah. So we have to put ourselves in a position, and that takes time, but it also takes vulnerability.
Wow.
It takes us being able to open up and to share. And again, you're not just doing this for somebody across the gas pump or someone at the checkout counter. You have relationships that you built over time, and they are reciprocal. They go back and forth. I did a video several years ago entitled "We All Need Somebody to Throw Up On," and I talked about our physical as well as our mental, because when we're physically sick, either you've gotten food poison, or those that drink, they've actually drunk too much. The first thing that body does is they want to get it out. They want to get the poison out, and the sad part about it, it may come out of one or both ends, but your body doesn't stop until it purges and gets all of it out.
It's spelling it out, yes. And that brings me back to that, just get it all out. And that's what talk therapy is. It's talk therapy. When you're talking to someone about your challenges or what you're going through in life, you're talking about it, and that helps you mentally. But if you keep it bottled all in and you internalize it, that's not helping you. So you got to get it out. You got to talk about what challenge you may be having.
Right. I was sharing with someone else. It's like if your body starts to regurgitate that poison. In fact, when you cover your mouth and you hold it in, you can't heal. So you have to get it out. In the same way, in the physical, it's similar in the mental. We have to have a place. Again, we all need somebody that we can throw up on. Somebody that we can, like you said, have that talk therapy and actually be able to get it out. And, the funny thing about it is, just like writing helps us to gather our thoughts and to organize them. Because in our head, the stories always change. It's a moving target. And even doing talk therapy, it's like there are times when you are speaking, you literally hear how crazy something sounds as you're sharing it, as opposed to what in my head I see it this way. But as I start talking and sharing it with someone, I'm seeing even more so now where the problem is lying. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. But those are all great ways to work. Do the work, that self work, whether it's
Okay.
talking to a trusted person and you're in a
Mm-hmm.
safe place and you feel that you can open up and talk to that person, or whether
Yes.
it's in the form of journaling, where you're able to get it all out and
Right.
reflect
Right.
on your past, and reflect on yourself, and what can you do moving forward.
Right.
So
Right.
all of those
I,
are great tools.
yeah, I actually talk about that in the book, and I have this process where I call it write it, read it, and release it.
Okay.
And 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 just to be honest and transparent, oftentimes, the things that men struggle with. Now, women don't have a problem having a diary or a journal, but a man really don't want to have his innermost thoughts, available for somebody to pick up and read. So, in that situation, my suggestion is write it down, read it out loud, and then just burn it. Put it in your fire pit, put it on your barbecue pit, and just set it fire. But write it, read it, and release it.
Release it. Yes.
Right, and that's the part I think a lot of people have a challenge with, but we have to want to do that even before we can start that process.
That's right.
So, what do you think is the biggest challenge or biggest obstacle when it comes to inner child healing?
Wow. I think, just personally,
Mm-hmm.
it's the resistance of feeling that pain.
Ooh, say that
Confronting,
again.
feeling, they don't want to. It's like it's reopening a wound, and
Mm,
so they don't want to reopen that wound if they're not ready to confront it. Because once you open it up, you got to confront it
yep.
and find ways to move forward and move past it. So I think that's the biggest obstacle in that area of healing, is the confronting that pain and not wanting to relive it.
Yeah. I had, in fact, one of my guests on my podcast, and she had a statement. She said, "Healing hurts," and as soon as she said that, my mind went back to in 2017. I had a total hip replacement, and the day after my surgery, the physical therapist came in my room and he told me something that was so profound, but it truly helped me to get better. He said, "Your mind doesn't recognize the difference between soreness and pain." He said, "Before you had pain, but now you have soreness." He says, "We have to push past the soreness to get to full range of motion of your hip." And when he told me that, that helped me because, Frank, when he first started twisting and turning, I was like, "Hey, ow, this feels like, like the surgery didn't work." But because he had preferenced it with that, I understood, okay, this isn't the pain I had before. This is the soreness from the surgery and from the muscles not being stretched as far as they could have been if my hip wasn't bad. And so healing does hurt. And that pain that people don't want to experience is the very thing they need to go through to get to the healing that they need.
Exactly. And also not even not just the healing, but being made whole. We could be healed, but there's a process of being made whole so that you are past that trauma and
Right.
you're able to, move forward in life and it not affect you in the way it once affected you. So like
Right.
you said, that even, going through that healing process, you got to know that once I'm healed, I could be made whole from this.
Right. In fact, that reminds me of people that have been in the criminal justice system. There are some people, they have gotten out, but what's their experience in them hadn't got out. So although they may be released or from being incarcerated, they are internally still incarcerated because of the shame, and they don't want anybody to know. But getting back to what you're saying about, okay, yes, you could be healed, you could be free, but are you willing and are you able to help somebody else? Are you able to talk about it? Are you able to give somebody else instruction on how not to go where you were? And I think that's one of the things that I've been doing with this book and this podcast, because once you get to a certain point, you don't have to be perfect or completely healed to help somebody else. If we waited until that point, nobody would ever be doing anything to help anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you got to take that first step.
That's it.
That first step.
That's
it. That's confronting it.
Yep. Now, you mentioned this earlier, so I'm going to give you a chance to kind of go a little deeper if you want to. And it's our next question was, do you believe that people can do inner child therapy alone?
I do believe that they can start the process.
There you go. That's what I wanted to hear. Right.
You can start the process of self-work, and there's a plethora of resources out there, whether they're books or some type of training or coping skills that you can put in place. But I definitely feel that life coach, mental health coach, and also connecting to that licensed professional counselor or a therapist or a social worker or a psychologist. So there's a process that can start, but I do recommend, especially some of those situations that call for those professionals. We definitely want to make sure that person is connected to all the resources that they need.
Right. That is so true. And the reason that I posed that question is because I definitely wanted, we cannot do this if we're not ready to do it. So we have to start the process. Like I mentioned earlier, even in my own case, I started asking myself questions. I didn't have anybody come to me and tell me, hey, look, you need to figure out why. No. I started asking myself. So you can start the process on your own. And, depending upon how deep the wounds are or how bad the trauma is, you definitely want to seek out professional help. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I included that, because a lot of people are like, well, okay, what can I do? Well, you can start the process of evaluating yourself. And even as she mentioned, there are books available. My book is a good source as well. There are programs. There are, individuals that, teach coping mechanisms. There are things you can do to start the process. And if you still find yourself in need, that's when you need to seek that professional help. And people need to invest in themselves. I tell people, no matter where you go, you're there. So that's why personal development is so important to me, because if you never develop, you'll take that thinking from one situation to the next, one relationship to the next, from one job to the next. So if you never develop as a person, you will always stay in that same mode of transportation. And one of my guests, she said something that blew my mind. She said, some people are dating the same person with a different face. And I was like, wow. Wow. Because it just showed, that pattern. Going back to what you said earlier about that pattern. So, our next question is, how can someone help others who are struggling to identify the need for inner child work?
Definitely, encouraging that conversation around, mental health, connecting them to that resource, but also doing that in a non-judgmental way. Because when a person comes to you, that's their first step. They come to you wanting some advice or seeking further help. That's the first step for them. So make sure that when you do talk with them, make sure that it's in a non-judgmental way. But as a mental health professional and an educator, I try to educate, my community and colleagues about mental health awareness and about the resources that are available. training them on how to recognize the warning signs and symptoms of a loved one, a family, a friend, or a colleague that may be having a mental health challenge, and how to connect them to that professional, or how to get them the help that they need, in an appropriate way. So definitely, you know, getting that mental health awareness training, getting that knowledge, getting those tools in your toolbox so that you can recognize signs and symptoms, so that you can help connect them to a professional, is very vital and very important. So the more we raise awareness on mental health, it decreases that stigma, but it increases that help-seeking behavior. So the more we talk about mental health, the more we normalize it, and people will want to reach out to get the help that they need.
That is so, so true. And listen, in fact, we have to take another quick break and hear a word from our sponsor. But when we come back, in fact, we're going to have a closeout and some closing thoughts from Miss Young. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal or choose Saconi Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, Miss Young, but I know that you have a walk that you do. It's like a mental health awareness. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. This is the 4th year that I have sponsored and hosted a annual mental health awareness walk and resource fair. And so that is to really, energize the community and bring about that awareness as far as it relates to mental health. And so we're decreasing that stigma. And so each year we, in the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, on a Saturday, we do a walk in my local community. This past year, we climaxed that walk at a venue, and there was a resource fair. We had NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. We had people engaged in recovery there, other community resources, because a lot of times individuals may not know what resources are available in their community. So we ensured to have resources there as well, so that people can get connected to community mental health, or if it's a life coach, or a therapist, or just a support group. All of those resources, we make sure that they are connected. But the awareness walk is all about raising that awareness in the community. And I also request a proclamation from the City Council and the Mayor to declare the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month. So those are all ways that you can raise awareness in your local communities. And also join a national or a state NAMI walk, which is a National Alliance of Mental Health Illness walk each year as well. So those are great opportunities to raise that awareness.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, definitely, we're going to put that on the calendar for next year. Well, if somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you, if somebody wanted to contact you, what would be the easiest way for them to do that?
Well, I have a business, which is New Mindset Consultant LLC, where I offer one-on-one mental health coaching and mental health literacy education. So they can reach out to me through my website, which is newmindsetllc.com. Also, my email is myoung@newmindsetllc.com. And I'm also on the social media platforms as well. LinkedIn, New Mindset, and also Marlo Young on
Okay.
LinkedIn and Facebook.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, Ms. Young, we want to thank you for your time and thank you for your expertise. And again, I want to say thank you for your service because I know it's not easy, and I know that there are times when your heart is broken by situations that people are going through. So, again, I applaud you for taking on the monumental task of helping people in this area of mental health. And so, again, thank you. All right, we're going to have all of our. Yeah, thank you again. So we're going to have all of our contact information around the video. In fact, whether you are watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, whether you are watching the replay on Instagram, or even if you are listening to it on iHeartRadio or Spotify, you can find out more information about her and everything that she has going on. Again, this is Saucony Prince of SauconyPrince.com, where we make motivation personal, introducing you to yourself. And we want to thank you for tuning in to our H.E.A.L podcast, Help, Elevate, and Learn, based on our book, with subtitle is A Guide for Healing Your Inner Child. Until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.